I will tell you,
I want
Billy,
it.
Billy,
The joint planning and zoning meeting for Ascension Parish for April 9th will now come to order.
Strike it harder.
You got to get right on it.
Okay. I'd just like to note that all commissioners are present and the staff has already introduced themselves. I just have a couple of comments to make. One is, I do want to note that since we have received the package and the package that was advertised, there have been meetings and the plan has been revised. So just so some people may not have seen exactly what is being proposed right now. Second, since there are so many people here, I'm going to ask everybody to remain orderly and civil. And also, since, if you just want to show your opposition or your opinion without actually speaking, you can sign a card and note your opposition on the card or your approval on the card without actually speaking if you would like to do that. And then also, I'm going to ask each person when your 3 minutes is up to please stop talking so that the next person can talk. Okay, the next item is public hearing to recommend approval or denial to the Parish Council to consider the following. Legacy Oaks Planned Unit Development Concept Plan, Zoning Review ID 2387.13, Tract A of the re-subdivision of the portion of the Gonzales Country Club for Legacy Oaks Development, LLC, Expert Maintenance and Construction Services, LLC.
Good afternoon. My name is Derek Murphy, representing the developers for Legacy Oaks. We come before you tonight asking for approval of the concept plan for the Legacy Oaks PUD. This piece of property was originally the golf course, Gonzales Golf Course, and what we're asking, back in 2008, this piece of property was rezoned from RM, as it sits today, to a PUD with 172 lots. These 172 lots ranged in width of from 46 feet up to about 80 feet. So typical of the same sizes as we are proposing on this PUD. Back in 2011, as you've heard it from this podium before, economics, changes in the market and so forth, caused the developers to rezone it back from a PUD to REM in order to include a school that is on the corner of Cornerview and this development. So back in 2011, it was rezoned from a PUD back to REM. We submitted this PUD to the parish back on February 12th, and due to technicality, it was pulled from the March agenda. It was supposed to be on the March agenda. So we're here today. Since that time, we have met with homeowners. We've had one large meeting and several other meetings, and during that time, we heard concerns ranging, as you might suspect, drainage, traffic. The main concerns was the West Main Street connection and some of the smaller lots being along the West Main Street and the Greenside Estates properties. So last Friday, we submitted to this commission a revised plan that y'all can consider or not consider, basically eliminating that connection and the larger 70-foot lots along West Main Street in order to answer some of the concerns that the residents of the area had. Why a PUD? I've been asked that a little bit because we are not, we don't have different land uses, so why a PUD? Well, in our opinion, the main reason is to ensure the developer's vision. If you look through this PUD package, either package that we submitted, you can see that there are architectural controls. These architectural controls, he wants to ensure that the parish can enforce these. He wants to make sure that, if you have restrictions, that is a civil matter, and the parish cannot be a part of that. He wants to make sure that his vision comes through in this development. We've also included over $400,000 in several amenities such as pavilions, playground uses, walking trails, above and beyond what we feel is required even in today's development code. So those reasons is why the PUD we feel is required in this time. we've had a lot of concerns on drainage, that the drainage along West Main Street or that road goes underwater. That is true. That road is low in several areas. Our development, we have a approved drainage impact study. That new river is controlled by the Marvin Bro Pumping Station. We understand that there are flooding issues in that area. Once we make it, we have done a drainage study that has been approved by this parish. Once we get to the construction plans, we will be, of course, making sure all drainage calculations are consistent with the rules and regulations of the parish ordinances. And so we understand that there are some flooding issues, and we need to make sure that we do not contribute any further to that issue. Traffic. As part of this, as part of the revised submission, we took off the traffic or the connection to West Main Street, and that's one of the concerns that the residents had. We performed a traffic study in accordance to the parish regulations. We had a traffic engineer who's here tonight to answer questions. But in his study, he said that there are no turn lanes warranted as part of this development. The engineering department is requiring a turn lane because they're citing safety concerns. Our traffic study is done in accordance to the parish and state regulation. This is a state road, and on every facet does not, it's not required. Now, that's up for debate, but I guess I'm not a traffic engineer, and I don't pretend to be. That's why he's here tonight, to answer any questions pertaining to that. Also, the original PUD back in 2008 had a second entrance onto Cornerview. This one, as you see, only has the main entrance by the school. Due to the DOTD traffic access policy that is in place, it is very hard to get more than one connection, much less two connections, on any type of state highways. Again, that's something that the traffic engineer can answer any questions that y'all might have. That's why we are sticking with the single entrance. What happens if the PUD doesn't get approved? This developer owns this piece of property. He bought it for an investment. He bought it to develop. Of course, we're going to go through. There's debates on how many lots we can have, but of course, in RM, we can do 127 lots. We can do 50, 60, 70-foot lots. We can do 80-foot lots. We can do anything per the code. We're asking to do something above the minimum. We're asking to do something that's going to be amenity driven, something that's going to be very nice, keep home values up, and have those amenities keep this development above and beyond the rest. So we're asking tonight for recommendation for approval to the council. We ask you to think about that. You're gonna hear from a lot of homeowners here tonight, and they're gonna be talking about the same things that I just spoke about, and probably some more. And I just ask for you to keep this in mind, that you're making a recommendation to the council, and we ask that you just look at the development as a whole, the amenities that we're offering, the reasons we're wanting this to be a PUD, and the recommendation to go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I open the public hearing, I'd just like the staff to make a few comments, and then we'll go ahead and open the public hearing.
The PUD has been reviewed, and the plan as originally submitted met the requirements of the code. As a planner, I'm going to tell you I prefer a second entrance. I spoke to Chad Lynch with the school board. They prefer a second entrance. Every plan the school has ever seen has shown a second entrance. There was an accident on Cornerview. If it had happened when the school was ready to let out, the kids wouldn't have been able to get out on the Cornerview because the accident blocked that entrance. A second entrance allows that school to get out. A second entrance allows police, fire, garbage, all those other things, if there's an accident, to still get in and circulate through the community. So I'm gonna state that I am personally in favor of a second entrance. As far as I know, the drainage report, the drainage study has been reviewed and approved. The traffic study, if you look at the comments, we're not requiring a turn lane, we're recommending a turn lane. We base that on the idea that the school had a traffic study done when the school was approved. And that traffic study said 150 is our ultimate build-out, and no turn lane is required. But they went a step further and said at 180, if we ever get to 720 kids, a turn lane will be required. And that's 180 AM peak trips turning into the subdivision. But they said that 150 is our max. Well, when this traffic study came in, it said we're going to have 30 AM peak trips. So in our mind, when you add 150 to 30, that's 180. It seems to us that a left-hand turn lane is warranted. But when we spoke with Neil Schaefer, they said, no, we didn't do the max count for the school. We did what's current going into the school. And so there's a question as to whether or not you should use the vested number, the approved number of trips for the school, or what's actually on the ground today. That's up to your discretion as to what you want to require. We're recommending a left-hand turn lane. We are not requiring it. Other than that, I do think Mr. Jordan and the development team is doing a nice amenity package. They're preserving a large number of trees. We think that some of these trees, where they're depicted in the middle of lots and on lot lines in the back of lots, they're going to be tough to save, but they're going to make every effort. I do believe that. I do believe Mr. Jordan is going to try to control the architecture and try to make this look like a great community. But some of the comments you're going to hear is that things that were approved when this plan unit development were originally approved aren't being done in this version. Things like houses facing Main Street. You know, that's a big deal to that community because they don't want to look at the back end of houses. They'd prefer to look at the front end. So I think we should open the public hearing and sort of hear what the community has to say because I know they've been meeting. They've gotten together and they've done what they're supposed to do. They've assembled and hopefully we hear one voice. I hope we don't hear one voice 40 times, but I hope we hear a nice group of ideas of why they are for or against this plan unit development.
I'd like to now open the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
could I ask
Yes,
the
sir.
developer to do something? We've got this map, and I understand there are amendments or changes to the packet that we received. Could you get up, put this map up, and show us exactly what those changes were? Because I'm not sure I quite understand. You mentioned a few things, but I'm not sure I completely understand what's different.
Is the amendment being considered tonight or just the original packet?
Well, we don't know.
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
Right.
This is what was originally submitted to you guys. And it shows a connection to West Main Street, and it also shows some 60s and 70s along West Main Street and the subdivision to the west. What we sent y'all on Friday as an amended package shows no connection to West Main Street, and it shows all 70s along Main Street and the western property line in order to try to satisfy some concerns that those residents had.
Ricky, under the existing code, if we turn this down, the developer could still build 70-foot lots right where they are now, or shown in this plot?
Yes, sir. The developer is going to have the option, if the PUD is denied at the council's level, to come back and submit a 127 lot max subdivision. At that time, we will not dictate where those lots go. It becomes it'll become up to his discretion if he wants to put the 70s in the middle around the lake to gain a premium, or if he wants to put the 70s on Main Street to continue to appease the community. That is entirely, the code will not dictate where those lots can go.
Nor will the code dictate he can have another entrance or not.
No, sir. It said should, the code says should, it doesn't say shall.
But he could put the entrance back onto West Main.
Sure.
I would like to make one comment on something that Ricky said. The homes along West Main Street, the intent is for the front of the houses to be on West Main Street. The street, the public street, will act as a rear-loaded alley per se. That has always been our intent. That's always been the developer's intent because, you know, of New River, you know, and its beauty, we want to preserve that. So there's large oak trees. So our intent never was to have driveways on West Main Street. That when we eliminate this connection, there will be no connection from driveways, lots, roads, or anything to West Main Street. So I want to make sure that's perfectly clear. Our lots have always fronted and intended to front. Originally, in the original PUD back in 2008, we had a rear alley. We took the rear alley out and put a standard road in, but the intent is always never to have any connection to West Main Street. And we can include that either on this or in the final development plan when we come back to ensure that these lots cannot connect to West Main Street.
That's what I'm wondering, how you could assure people, because I think that makes a good bit of a difference.
Right.
Whether it faces, and how do you guarantee that? I mean, intention
Well,
is
you can
one
put
thing.
it as a part of this package, we can add it to this package, you can make it as a stipulation of your approval, or when we come back for the final development plan, just like we would any preliminary plat or anything like that, we can put that as lot so-and-so to so-and-so will not
Right, you can put that.
connect to West Main Street.
I have another question, Ricky. Is a concept plan the same thing as a preliminary plat? Just along with PUD?
No, sir. With the plan unit development, the first stage is what's called the concept plan. And so this concept plan shows a lot more detail than your typical concept plan. And I think it's because they're trying to share the vision for what this plan could be. Typically, you might just have blobs that says low density, medium density, high density residential. You might have just a dash line that says, here's where we think the transportation network's going to be. And that's the map that gets sent to the council for a rezone that says this piece of property will be a PUD. And then in the next stage, they do the final development plan that really starts to get to this level, which becomes your preliminary plat.
Can we also talk about amenities? I mean, I like that word. I like what we did with the subdivision regulations. And I mean, I see that the park space, I'm not sure if everyone out here gets to see this comparison of 127 lots versus 155, but I mean, the park space goes down. What other amenities are forced in this PUD versus it would be kind of nice if you put something in a T&D? What would we be losing if we didn't approve this? Yeah, we can just talk, I guess
Well,
define these amenities a little better.
I mean, basically, with the way the normal subdivision code is written today, it's just so much green space. You don't have to do a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 park. If you provide so much green space, I think, which is the 2.5
Yeah.
acres. We're providing 4 acres, but we're also making it basically a stage 3 type park, where we're adding the walking trails, we provide tree preservation, a 20 by 20 pavilion, the seating pavilions, a playground. We've also included in the last revision that y'all had, park benches, barbecue pits, all that kind of stuff in order to up the ante, if you will. But basically, trying to make this for the people inside this development to make it pristine. And that's above and beyond what any requirement that the
T&D
parish
would be.
has.
For T&D.
For PUD. For any
Well-
subdivision. But for PUD, that's what we're using, that's what we're saying. We're providing these additional amenities in order to justify the PUD. If, for standard subdivision, none of that's required.
Now, is that just on the developer's word that that's going to take place? Is the parish, are we making some kind of deal that this big pavilion's coming and?
So as part of this approval, when it gets rezoned to plan unit development, the next step is he does a final development plan and he does a developer's agreement. We would put every single thing that we agree to at this meeting, at the council meeting, into the developer's agreement, which then gets adopted as an ordinance, and then it becomes law. He will basically say, in the first filing, this is what we agreed to, in the second filing, this is what we agreed to, and he will not get to move through his filings unless he's accomplished the goals that we've established in the developer's agreement.
Right. So and we've had a lot of people say, well, PUD's changed. In order for a PUD to change, we have to come back in front of every public body, just like we're doing today. The thing with a standard subdivision, I mean, there's changes that can happen at staff level. A PUD is a lot more restrictive on what can be done and how it can progress.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead with the public hearing, because I know so many people are here and would like something to say. Okay, Jack.
Staff, when I look at the comparison chart that you provide us, as well as Table B zoning, which defines, when you look at residential medium, which is zoning for this particular development, single-family units 3. Now, I'm going to assume that when this was designed or developed, it takes into consideration the strain or stress on supporting infrastructure, be it utilities, roads, what have you. My concern then, in helping with this, is this proposal exceeds that. Is there any concern to you that there be a little bit more strain or stress on the infrastructure supporting utilities?
Sure. I think that a year and a half or 2 years ago, we started to talk about revisions to the PUD ordinance, and one of those revisions was going to be to cap the density at what the zoning map says. So if you want to do a plan unit development in residential medium, you cap it at 3 units an acre. If you want to do one in rural, you cap it at 2. If you want to do one in conservation, you cap it at 1. My argument was the people have spoken. That's the density that they're happy with. That's the density that we should keep it at. And with going to a PUD, what you're doing is allowing them to build smaller lots. You're allowing them to mix in uses, commercial, office, whatever, that they're not allowed to do with their underlying zoning. Those revisions were tabled. They didn't go any further. And so we went back to what does the code currently allow? Do I have personal concerns over 3.7 versus 3? They're minor. That is a relatively low difference. You're not talking about 6 units an acre. This isn't a super dense urban PUD. This is a residential rural PUD. You know, they do have more 50s than are currently allowed in the subdivision code. But you know, the density number doesn't scare me as much as the community has said 3 units an acre is what we want in this area. Is the commission, is the council comfortable with exceeding that number? Because I originally thought that, well, 3, 2, 1, that's what the community says they want. Let's stick to that. It's easy.
Okay. Any other comment from a commissioner? All right, let's go ahead with the cards then.
Jamie Rye.
My name is Jamie Rye. I reside at Greenside, lot number 4, directly adjacent to the property that's in discussion at this moment. I have a couple of just questions and some concerns. One, what we're talking about the property next door, but as me as a resident, and I'm living there right now, putting 155 houses in development next to me, what does that do? We're already experiencing drainage problems right now, and what is going to happen to we're addressing the concern of 155 houses in new development, but I'm existing. No one's done any study in my neighborhood to see what effects would take place with that establishment. The second, I lived in Bonne Terre across the street all my life, longtime resident of Ascension Parish. Moved across the street, built a house 7 years ago. I've traveled down West Main all my life and seen, you know, with the development, popularity, you know, of people, seeing that travel down West Main has increased in the last couple of years because of industry development, traffic problems on 73, Highway 30, traffic problems, and seem to be everybody's getting clever about hitting side roads. Today, Cornerview, today I got traveled by there at 5 o'clock. Cornerview is backed up at the 44, and Cornerview sometimes at 5 o'clock, 5:30, could be up to a mile behind, you know, at the cycle of the red light. So with that, everybody's cutting across, coming off of 73, coming down Cornerview, West Main, and then hitting 44 again. So the concern of West Main is probably one of the biggest concerns I have for safety. Now there's a school in the morning, school bus travels down West Main. Coming up on school buses, you have to stop. The road is deteriorating. They patch it, but even with the patches, it's barely meeting 16 feet. So that's one of my biggest concerns, is safety to children as well as my family and my neighbors and my friends. The other is that flooding. They make impact studies, flood studies, and I'm myself not an engineer by trade, but I do live the real life of seeing when we have storms.
I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah, that's
We're
okay.
going to
Thank you.
stick to the 3 minutes since there's so
But
many.
I would like to lead this.
Yes, you may. Next card.
Charles Doma.
Greetings to everyone present. My name is Charles E. Dama, and I live at 11400 Greenside Drive. I wish to address the members of this planning commission and our council. The first thing I wish to address is retention ponds. There is limited land area for supporting a large pond. There will always be water in the pond. In a heavy rain, such as in the pictures submitted, I have pictures of the flood during Hurricane Isaac, which is a Category 1. Let's see. You're going to have to help me here with this.
Reboot.
Okay.
Do you want to take it apart?
You can if you like.
Do you need your notes?
All right.
That looks like the bridge.
This is New River. You can see New River is overflowed its banks. Here's a house in Belterry. Their sewage is not going to work until water subsides below their drainage pipe. This is just another picture of the flood. And this shows water actually crossing over West Main. And that water in that ditch is mine. In a heavy rain such as the picture submitted, they will overflow into surrounding property, including the school already there. Sewage will be part of the overflow. Any sewage directed toward New River will back up until how many days it takes to
Thank you,
return
sir.
to normal.
I hate to be rude and interrupt, but, you know, we're going to stick to the 3 minutes. So each person has 3 minutes, so everybody has a time
I'm
to
over
speak.
3 minutes?
Yes, sir. Your buzzer just buzzed. You're on a time.
Okay.
Oh, he had technical.
I'd like to submit this, though, for the record.
Yeah, thank you.
Let him finish his statement.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and finish.
I can still talk?
Yes, sir.
Oh, it's all about surges. I have actual comments off of the internet about surges from Katrina, from Rita, and from the recent Isaac hurricane. Some of those surges all affect Louisiana coast, 28 feet after Katrina. Now, that has nothing to do with us here, but we do have surges that do affect us in Pontchartrain, Slidell area, Maurepas, and the Amite. Even our diversion canal has no place to go in a large surge. So if there's damage done to our property in the legacy subdivision, who is going to be liable for the cleanup? There will be black mold, I'm sure, if water gets in there. in the ceiling, in the walls, and on the floors. They could be damaged. Our school will be shut down until that can all be cleaned up.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Can I ask something as we
Yes,
just,
sir.
I don't want to, I mean, I hate to break away from the public, but, Derek, I have an engineering question on what's going on with the piece of property now and as to where, how much water is coming off the property now and where is the existing water now? Where's the outfall for that now? Is it going into New River somewhere along the?
Yes, sir.
One of the old
When
greens?
the school was developed, the school built a detention pond on the Legacy Oaks
Yeah,
property.
I've heard that, okay.
And there's a 48-inch outfall structure that goes under West Main Street directly into New River.
Okay,
What we're planning on doing is, as of right now, a very large portion of this property goes directly into New River. We're gonna, per the drainage study, we're gonna be collecting a vast majority of this area and bring it to that large detention pond that you see on
and
the
I agree with
bottom.
that, yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, I mean, tailwater is a problem. Gaspard spoke to that several times in the parish, and you're on the edge of tailwater. I mean, you're
Correct.
right, it's right in your face right now, but, I mean, the way I look at it is, you know, if this thing drains out into this 48-inch pipe, you're gonna have to detain this, and you're not really gonna be able to allow the water outside of your subdivision until the tailwater subsides.
That's correct.
I mean, you're kinda almost taking a
Well-
chance of keeping it in this bowl and flooding out the neighborhood more than
Well,
dumping it on people.
the way we approach that is with floodplain mitigation. We have to provide
Okay.
calculations saying that we basically are not filling up the floodplain any more
That's
than
right.
it's filled up today. So once we get to the construction plans and do the calculations, we're gonna be able, you know, we'll have all that shown. Engineering will look at everything to make sure. Now, West Main Street does have some low areas on the road. It will go
Mm-hmm.
underwater. We design for a 10-year storm per code.
That's correct.
We don't design for the Hurricane
100-year.
Isaacs or 100-year storm. We do not.
That's right.
We also, this particular, New River is part of the pumping system. So it is subject to not just normal flows, but it's subject for drawdowns and things like that. The static water surface out there is around elevation 2, which was about I think it's about 2 to 3 feet below the 48-inch pipe. So there is a large fluctuation in New River. It does come up to the road. It's about elevation anywhere from 9 to 10. We do realize that there is going to be some backflow coming back into the pond. We're aware of that.
All right, one thing I just want to say before I let everybody start talking again is I feel like whether a PUD happens or a T&D happens, this problem is going to be the same no matter what.
I agree.
Either development that goes in, we're still, I mean, it's neither, one or the other is not going to fix the flooding problem that we have here right now.
Right, and
development
our
is gonna
goal is
happen
not
here.
to fix the flooding of the entire region. We
Right.
can't. We're a
Right.
small portion
You
of
just
that
have to
region.
detain it.
We have to detain what,
That's right.
we're having to leave it like it is today and not make it any worse. We're gonna try to
right.
improve it the best we can. However, I can't say that we're gonna fix the flooding in the area.
Right.
We have an ordinance that we must follow, that post-development flows from this property has to meet pre-developed flows.
Right.
And that's what we do.
Okay, all right, sorry. Everybody can get back.
Next speaker, please.
Benny Landry.
Hi, I'm Benny Landry. I live at 11384 Greenside Drive. I was the developer of Greenside Estates. My concern is for the neighborhood as much as anybody else. I feel a responsibility to have sold lots to my friends and great homeowners on both sides. I would think that the 5 lots on that bordered the Gonzales Country Club, the investment in those houses and lots are $2.5 million maybe. Greenside, the fall out of my backyard toward what was the golf course, that's the fall line. We're in a low spot. We are lower in Greenside than the golf course is. So the golf course drains my way, we drain their way. There's a 50-year ditch, or 50 or 60-year-old ditch line that when the golf course was built, it wasn't on the property line. It circumvented around, and it was a natural flow. And so to help the drainage behind my lot, my neighbor's lot, I put a 2-foot culvert to collect the water. Now, my neighbors to the right don't have that ditch to worry about because their ditch was on what is now Legacy Oaks property. My big concern is what is Legacy Oaks going to do to make sure that when the houses come, which is now over the, what's the natural drainage for 60 years and a ditch there, what are they going to do to dig a ditch, make sure that they don't build up that land so much that higher than the lots in Greenside, that all that water is going to come flood back toward me. It's going to change the 60-year drainage. So I hadn't seen a plan where that's a substantial drainage situation that's going to happen to the people that I sold land to, that I have a responsibility to protect because, you know, that's what I want to do for my neighbors. You know, with that, you know, being said, I would like to wait till they give me some type of assurance that that water is not going to back up from their high land to my land because it never did before they're going to put houses on it. Everything has been fine. And I think we need some more reassurances on that. And with that situation, I don't want anything to go forward unless they can show me some, you know, responsibility for protecting our flooding situation.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Brad Bond.
Good evening. My name is Brad Bond. My wife and I have been a resident of Greenside Estates, Lot 5, since 1999. We moved there because it was rural, peaceful, not a lot of houses, and that's what we enjoyed, and that's what we've been enjoying. I'm not necessarily opposed to them developing that property. What we're opposed to is them developing that property and putting even more houses in there than what it's already zoned for. I definitely can appreciate their wanting to build a nice development that aren't all cookie-cutter houses and, you know, they're of good quality. And I just don't understand why they can't do that with the lesser amount of houses. I have a lot of the same concerns as what some of these people that spoke before me, as well as some of these people that speak behind me. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we are also concerned about the traffic, the drainage. Just like Benny said, it may be worried about it shedding onto our property. They mentioned about putting the houses along West Main, the front of the houses facing the street. Well, along our side of the street, I'm sure I'll be looking at the back of a bunch of houses. So therefore, I'm going to have to put a fence up to keep from looking in the back of a bunch of people's backyards with their dogs and kids and, you know, lawnmowers or what have you. So ultimately, what we would like is the opportunity to discuss what can be developed there to where we can all have a happy medium. But ultimately, we, the local community, are going to be left with whatever's developed there for us to deal with and look at and live with for however long we're there. And that's our biggest concern. So I will cut my time short so some of these other folks can get up here. I'd like to
Thank you, sir.
submit this.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please. Who's next?
Dale Spat.
Mr. Spate.
Gentlemen, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I've lived in Ascension Parish since 1967. I know most of you on this commission. I've lived in Bonterre subdivision since 1974 when I built my home. I want to go on record as being opposed to Legacy Oaks subdivision being rezoned from the RM residential to the PUD housing development. My main concern is drainage and road safety. The more buildable lots you have, the more drainage runoff that you have to deal with. The present plan for this development is to have all the drainage going to New River Bayou. I don't believe New River Bayou can handle this added load, and I believe this additional load is going to cause more flooding in the area, as well as in this subdivision, or PUD, whatever it turns out to be. I understand Legacy Oaks is going to be developed. I understand that. We all understand that. But the current 3 lots per acre should not be changed to 3.7 or whatever the PUD allows it to be. Also, the drainage outflow must go under West Main Street to get to New River Bayou. During several heavy rainfall events associated with tropical storms, drainage water has gone over West Main at the point where the Legacy Oaks drainage culverts were installed. And as a result, West Main Street had to be barricaded and shut down for safety reasons. There's also a road safety issue on Cornerview Road. It's my understanding that the Louisiana Department of Transportation is studying the safety issue presently. The Legacy Oaks development is going to create a lot more traffic on Cornerview and Legacy Oaks Lane, coupled with the Carver School traffic at peak morning and afternoon hours, creating more residential traffic on Legacy Oaks Lane with a PUD housing development is not prudent to public safety. I believe a PUD housing development will have a negative impact on the community, and I respectfully ask that you decline the request to rezone this property. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Stacy, next.
Matil Abramson.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Matil Abramson, and for over 40 years I've lived at the dead end of West New River Extension. Our home is directly across New River Bayou and West Main Street from the proposed Legacy Oaks subdivision. I have personal knowledge of this area, having lived there for that period of time. Let me begin at first by telling you I'm not opposed to progress or development of our beautiful parish. I love it here, and I want to see us continue to prosper. I'm not across the board opposed to PUDs. I am, however, opposed to the plan or plans which are being presented to you tonight, and I'm not sure which one y'all are going to consider, so I'm just opposed to whichever one of those that you're going to consider tonight. Let me make that point. I simply don't have enough information, and I have a number of concerns that have not been addressed, and you've heard that from others up here, which leaves me no choice except to say I'm opposed, and I'm asking you sincerely, please deny what has been presented, either one of them, to you tonight. From my discussions with some staff members, elected and appointed officials, I understand when a PUD is proposed and is accepted, it is most important that the concerns and the questions for the developer have been addressed with him or her and resolved. It is the time to work out any differences is now. It's not at some later state. We must know what is going to go on there. And we heard some really, and I'm going off my script now, I heard some interesting comments tonight, that they know that there's flooding there. They know that it's probably going to continue to flood, but we're not going to resolve it. I think that this is what you guys are up there, and from everything I've heard about you, all of y'all are real smart and real devoted and real interested. And for that, I thank you for giving your time. But we need to solve problems on the front end, not on the back end. I'm a lawyer by trade. I don't want to be in court over this. I don't want it to become a civil matter. Let's address these issues and concerns now. And as I listen tonight, I want you to keep in mind the 12 principles that were adopted by the Parish Council. One is to protect public safety. You've heard about the issues with Main Street. I agree with that. Protect the property and the drainage issues. And I agree with the things that you heard tonight. And I ask you to please keep those things in mind. I don't see anything in their studies that tell me what real effect it's going to have on New River Bayou. What effect is it going to have when it goes through Gonzales? What effect is it going to have? And that big culvert is aimed right at my piece of property. And I don't know what kind of effect it's going to have. The detention pond is, sure, it's an amenity, but it's a detention pond. Don't be fooled by thinking that they put it there just to make it pretty. They also told you that they need a detention pond to capture the water. We have asked, and I'm asking again, I'm always willing to sit down and talk, but I'm asking you tonight to deny them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Patil. Stacy?
Gail Robert.
While he comes up, could I ask an engineering question?
Yes, sir.
With the,
Yes, ma'am.
if there's a detention pond that's full, and there's an outflow to the bayou, does that create enough pressure to overcome the bayou? It's just gonna hold?
A, if the bayou's too high, and then B, I mean, that pipe is only rated to handle so much Q. I mean, it can't
It
exceed
can't
that. The pipe-
overcome.
The pipe
can't-
is the hose.
Yeah, but it
Even
can't
with the
like
head pushing.
create a surge that increases it. It's just gonna
No
hold.
more than what's there now. I don't care. It'll flood the neighborhood like a bowl.
Yeah.
That's how it's designed before it'll allow any
Before it can
more
get
Q to
out.
come out of that pipe before.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Robert?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight and voice my opinions of what I see, or have seen, and not really sure where we're going with the project. Because we've had 2 or 3 different ideas, 2 or 3 different programs that were presented, or maps or layouts. We've had meetings to try to address the concerns, and I still don't think we have a final plan. So until we have a final plan, I'm not willing to vote for it, and would ask that neither one of you do until we have in writing what is proposed and what effects it will have. I live at 12096 West Main Street, which is between the Gonzales Country Club and the Carriage House. I've been there since 1975. I've watched every flood. I've had to drive through 1.5 feet of water to get to my house on both the left side of my house and the right side of my house. We do have a problem with flooding. I understand that retention pond is going to be there, but the outfall for the retention pond is about 2.5 feet below where the level of the water was when it was flooded. So instead of helping it drain, when the new river is flooded, the water is going to back up into the subdivision and flood everybody in the subdivision.
That's right.
The elevation that they're planning for the subdivision is 9 feet. The elevation of the water in front of my house, on my house, is 12.5 feet. And there's a concrete benchmark in front of my house that's 11 feet and 3/4 of an inch. It was within 3 inches of that 3 times in the last flood. So you're going to have water backing in that's going to be 1.5 feet above the houses that they're planning right now, if my math is correct. So I have a lot of concern of what's going to happen with that. We've had discussions with the people and told them what I knew was from being there, that period of time that I've lived there and watched the water come in. It comes from that project to the back of the country club, goes across the country club, goes back behind the carriage house, goes over to Rosewood and all the houses on Rosewood, and goes in to the back of the football field, all the way into Cornerview and almost to 44. And all of that area behind 5 subdivisions gets 2 foot, 3 foot, and the last flood was the worst that we've had so far, backing up into all of those areas. Now, if this doesn't put more water on us there, then I'm not against the project. I think it's a good project, if you make sure you take care of the problems that's being addressed here tonight. So I'm asking you to make them give you a complete engineering elevation and what's going to happen to that water to not create more problems for everybody in the area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Ronald Daigle.
Hello, I'm Ronald Daigle. I live across Cornerview Road from the Legacy Oaks proposed project. I own or have an interest in a major portion of the frontage on Cornerview Road. My concern with this project is the traffic and thus the safety issue. On Monday morning, I witnessed 8 cars stacked up in front of my house waiting for one car to make a left-hand turn. Now, I live approximately 150 feet from that road. It is only a matter of time before someone is not going to stop, and thus a chain reaction. Already there have been 2 collisions at this intersection since the school was open in October, the second worse than the first. We presently have people that enjoy cycling and walking on this 12-foot wide shoulder. We have a saying in the construction industry that every safety rule is written in someone's blood. Are we going to address this before someone else's blood? I'm also very much interested and concerned about all the parish officials talking and maintaining rural character. Here is your chance to do a little bit about it. My son and his family and I run a cattle and goat farm on this property. It is that I, as yourselves, have witnessed the loss of many farm-type operations in the last few years in our parish. These 55 to 70-foot lots have no appearance of a rural character at all. I know I cannot stop this person or these people from building, but please, let's have them make bigger lots. We on our family property have to have a 1-acre lot right across the street. So please, let's keep some kind of a yard space, at least a minimum of 16,000 square foot lots. So please, no PUD.
Thank you, sir.
Bob Landry.
Good evening. My name is Bob Landry, and I live at 11404 Roddy Road. I'm here tonight as one of the previous owners of the property that sold to Legacy Oaks. I want to speak out on some of the assurances that were given to the sellers of the property when it was done back in 2007. Had we known that a PUD would have been developed on what is now the old golf course, more than likely the sale would not have taken place. My concern is, and our family concern at that time, was for the neighborhood, its rural characteristics, the size of the lots and homesteads in the area. And a PUD is not something that we had envisioned for our neighbors and some of our family members. And some of the assurances that were given us, I have not seen tonight on any of the documents. Assurances such as a fence along the Greenside Estates, tying into the sewer system, berms on Cornerview Road that would act as a noise barrier. None of those things that I've seen presented to you. So it is therefore I'm asking you not to approve the PUD as designed. This is too many houses for that one particular area, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Landry.
Loretta Email. Good evening. My name is Loretta Beach Email. I live at 11372 Greenside Drive in Greenside Estates. I own property in Bonne Terre subdivision as well, where I lived there with my family for 34 years.
Excuse me.
Our home in Bonne Terre flooded in
Reset the clock.
The clock wasn't reset, and I want to give you your whole 3 minutes, so I'm going to get them to start the clock, so you have 3 whole minutes.
I'm not going to go 3 minutes, but that's fine, thank you. I own property in Bonne Terre subdivision and lived there for 34 years with my family. Our home in Bonne Terre flooded in 1977 and again 2 years later in 1979, after which we built a brick retainer wall around our home to protect it. We fought flooding conditions many, many times thereafter and managed to save it from flooding. When property nearby in Greenside Estates became available, and it assured me that I could build a home in that area out of a flood zone and live without fear of flooding, I bought the property and built that new, safe home. Now I'm told that my new backdoor neighbor, Legacy Oaks, is asking permission from Planning and Zoning Commission and ultimately Parish Council to build a very crowded subdivision with large retention ponds, which can and probably will overflow during heavy rains with runoff onto our Greenside Estate properties. and West Main Street, I might add. This, contrary to their original plan to build a much smaller community, is very distressing, at least. Flooding is one of my primary concerns, to say the least. But also ruining the character of our rural surroundings is another, as well as congesting our existing narrow and overcrowding streets, causing more unsafe driving conditions. I plead with the Commission not to approve this application as presented, I think, tonight, and changing the zoning of this property to accommodate the many residences they are requesting. I love our parish. I've been here 40 years. We moved here from way out of town, out of state, and I grew to love this parish. Raised our children here. They're grown, they're gone, but I remain here, and I would like to see it remain true to form. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Senior.
I would like to submit this.
Thank you.
Stephen Abramson?
Good evening. My name is Stephen Abramson, and I live directly across West Main Street in New River from the Legacy Oaks planned development. I have lived in my present location for over 40 years, and I have seen the impact of flooding and closure of West Main Street at times twice a year. I believe that the present subdivision drainage will have an impact of increased flooding, since most, if not all, will be going to New River. In fact, 84.4% will be going to New River. I think that living and seeing the flooding for over 40-plus years and having firsthand information is much more important than any paid study. Legacy Oaks sold approximately 1/4 of their property to the school board for a school, yet they want to put up approximately 25 to 27 more units than they would be entitled to have in the present zoning of RM, which is approximately 127 units. This is not managing growth nor preserving the rural character of the area. West Main Street is a substandard, narrow, curving road with a history of cars going into New River. The impact of the proposed subdivision is a safety hazard. The owners and developers should have met with the surrounding property owners much early in the process prior to attempting to submit their concept plan for zoning and approval last month. I found out a month ago of the planned zoning by chance, 1 hour before the meeting. I don't know which of the two plans the developers are presenting, but both are unacceptable. When the owners sell this property, they are gone, and the Legacy Oaks Homeowners Association properly managing the detention ponds and property is really unrealistic. The developers have not met the Ascension Parish Development Code, which I have here, your code, in the following principles: protect public safety and property, manage growth, preserve the rural character, keep the process simple and open. I urge the Commission and the Council to deny the changing zoning and keep the RM zoning in effect as their recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abrams.
Mr. Chair, I should disclose that Dr. Abramson is a St. Elizabeth physician, so I have a relationship that I should disclose.
Stacy.
Darla Rye?
Good evening. I'm reading a letter on behalf of Ward Webb, who cannot be here because his father is very ill. So I'm reading on his behalf. My name is Ward Webb, and I'm the owner of the property that conjoins the southeast corner of what was the original Legacy Oaks property. I would like to address you regarding my concerns of the current proposal for the Legacy Oaks PUD development located off of Cornerview Road. As you are aware, the same type of development under the same owners was proposed approximately 6 to 7 years ago. At that time, I believe the proposal was to build 172 lots on approximately 60 acres of land, or just under 3 lots per acre. Though not against the project, at that time I expressed my concerns regarding the feasibility of the project due to the state of the housing market. I was told that the owner-developer had never had a failed project and that this one would be no different, yet here we are several years later and we are once again being sold on a guaranteed development. The difference now is that the property's been reduced by approximately 15 acres in size due to the sale of the property to the school board. Yet the new proposed development calls for 155 lots on approximately 44 acres of land, or almost 3.7 lots. Everyone has the right to live at a place of their choosing. The development appears to me to be an effort of the owner to develop as many lots as possible to cut his losses on a bad investment that he chose to make several years ago. This was clearly indicated by his perceived keen interest when asked if he would be willing to sell the property to another investor, and the statement that if the hearing was delayed it would cost them another month's interest. That being said, my specific concerns regarding the PUD development of this property are as follows. Flooding. Since the construction of Carver Primary, my property has seen swifter water buildup and extended drainage and drying time. School overcrowding. Though the new Carver School was just opened in October, its student population is already above what is recommended and temporary buildings are being discussed. Traffic. Since the opening of Carver, we have already seen 2 crashes on Cornerview. Safety. I was told by one project engineer that they would not be putting in a left-hand turn lane eastbound on Cornerview because their traffic count did not require them to do so. Yet I am in receipt of an email from Mr. Jason Taylor, Chief Engineer for Ascension Parish Government, to Mr. Benjamin Moore, stating that Engineering Department recommends the installation of left-hand turn lane at the unsignaled intersection of Legacy Oaks. I find it regrettable that we would risk the safety of others simply because the engineer's traffic study did not require them to install the left-hand turn. I close in saying I understood the promise and the potential of Ascension Parish holds.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Deborah McGrew. Hi, my name is Deborah McGrew. I live at 39387 Bonterre Drive. That property faces the old golf course, and it would have been the #1 fairway. And I'm here to raise my opposition to the PUD community that's being planned on that golf course. There's many reasons for concern, but the flood is the highest priority. Our neighborhood has flooded several times without the addition of those 153 homes across the street. So-
Excuse me just one second.
Not
Can you,
loud enough.
can you start the clock, please?
I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. The clock just didn't
A
start when
little
you started.
nervous anyway,
It's-
so my hands start flailing, then look out, y'all.
You should be up
I'll
here.
get cranked up. Let me back up. Okay, so I live across the street from there, and my husband's property, it used to be high and dry, and over the several years, as the New River's flooded, it's caused water to stand on our property, and we've lost 2 beautiful trees in the process. We used to mow the grass like this. My husband mows the grass like this now. That's just the way the property is. It's right there, and the water rise, and then that's what we get. And that's without the addition of the 153 homes that'll be across the street from us. So it's just normal mathematics that there's going to be flooding issues. I don't believe that the PUD community plan, it addresses these problems accurately. Also, my understanding is that the neighborhood association that's going to be in Legacy Oaks will be in charge of maintaining the sewage system there. In my opinion, 153 first-time home buyers do not have the expertise to manage that important task. We have a gentleman in our subdivision who manages our water, and he only has to manage 18 households, and he has his hands full. Adversely, that would happen. What would happen if the homeowners association, what if they go defunct? As a lot of homeowner associations do go defunct. That responsibility would then fall upon the parish. The parish has enough responsibility with their own water and sewage issues around the parish. And I don't think it's fair that the taxpayers of Ascension Parish has to pay for the parish to step in and maintain a sewage system on private property. It's just not correct and the right thing to do. And also, too, I think that once once the cost has been passed on to the taxpayer, the developer's made his money in Ascension Parish, and it's just for us to be there and make it up to our own devices. I'm just asking that we please consider the current residents' concerns before you approve such a densely populated subdivision, and a densely populated subdivision that's next to a school that little children are in and out, in and out, in and out of there. It's going to make traffic issues and safety concerns way, way more problematic with that right there. They can put that in a densely packed, a densely subdivision like that somewhere else. It doesn't make sense to set it next to a school like that either. Thank you. Sorry I'm so nervous, but you know.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, thank you.
Jim McGrew?
Hi, I'm Jim McGrew. I live at 39387 Bonterre. That was my wife. And, yeah, I do cut the grass sideways. I just want to, I'm up here today, I want to express my strong opposition to the planned HUD community that they're proposing. I don't think it's very well thought out. I have a few reasons for that. You know, obviously, to me, safety is a major concern. It's my understanding they're going to sell over 150 lots. 150 households. A single, depending on what plan you look at, I think it's going to be a single entranceway in front of it. It's going to be shared with the school. You know, I can't imagine what rush hour must look like there, you know, on Corner View. It just doesn't seem like it's safe at all. It's common sense. Not a good idea. Not well thought out. Drainage, even with the retention pond expanded, the addition of all those homes will adversely affect our flood potential. The Bonterre subdivision has flooded probably 2 or 3 times in the last 2 or 3 years, where I've had to wade in and out of our house to our subdivision. The addition of a PUD community with 150 plus lots, more lots equals more houses, less absorption, more flooding. It's common sense, not well thought out. I just don't think it's a good idea. The sewage factor, as my wife touched on. It's my understanding that the subdivision will be sharing the sewage plant with the school. Who is going to maintain that? You know, why do my tax dollars have to maintain a sewage plant that's going to be used for a private community? Doesn't seem right. It just doesn't seem right. And if you look at, you know, homeowners association, I think Oak Alley's going through some sort of a problem like this as well. It's my understanding, where their homeowners association we're supposed to maintain a sewage plant and are unable to do it, and so we're having problems there. Yeah, there's a few other concerns that I have, but in conclusion, I strongly encourage you guys to vote this down tonight. Just keep it RM. As a local business owner and a multiple property owner in Ascension Parish, I understand the business side of it. You know, he wants to sell as many lots as he can. There's no question about it. It makes sense. But I just don't think that is in the community or the parish's best interest. And it could have disastrous effects down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tess Stromberg?
You want to set your clock?
I'll keep going.
You shouldn't have asked.
Hello, my name is Tess Stromberg, and my husband Lee and I purchased property directly adjacent to the proposed development. We purchased our land with full knowledge that this golf course was going to be developed into a subdivision, and we have no objection to that as long as it's done correctly. Over and over again, we've been told in this process, when I say we, I'm speaking for all of us, you're better off accepting the PUD because you never know what you'll get instead. That's kind of scary because we haven't been given the time, the information, or the materials to question what is being proposed. The proposal directly cites the flood study done for the new Carver School. It's based upon that. It's part of their packet. Yet since the school's been built, the detention pond has had to be redug twice. Neighboring properties are now holding water. West Main has been closed twice in the past 2 years due to flooding, and Bonterre has begun taking on water. There are very serious traffic issues related to this development on both West Main as well as Corner View, Yet we're expected to rely on their paid experts that everything's just fine. We tried to work with these developers. We expressed our concerns. We met with them. They walked away from the table one night, refusing to compromise at all. When they figured out that there was no way they could win the West Main argument, they came back the next morning proposing changes. In reality, the changes were just that there was no opening on West Main, and they only lost 2 lots. They refused to address the high density of the subdivision, the effect on flooding, or the corner view traffic issues. And those are what we kept bringing up. Nobody cares about which way houses face. They never heard that from us. We begged them to put this off for 1 month and work with us. And all we heard over and over, 4 times in one meeting, was, that's another month of interest. These developers are not from Ascension Parish. They don't care about Ascension Parish. They only care about getting their money and getting out, and they made that clear to every one of us. As a group, we learned the hard way we can't hold them to their word. When the Landry family sold to them, they were assured that 1-acre lots would be sold for $100,000 each. The Landry family is told that. A few years later, they told the adjacent homeowners the same thing. When we questioned them, they said, well, that was 7 years ago. But less than 1 year ago, my husband and I met with one of these owners, and I was told the exact same thing. A subdivision was coming with 1-acre lots. Now, we have a very high-density subdivision coming with no concern over flooding, safety, and it's being shoved down our throat. If you drive down Main Street, you'll see that this area has kept its rural character throughout the years. We offer the developers examples of subdivisions in Ascension Parish that would be in keeping with the character of this area. They were dismissed. We welcome a subdivision, but not one that's putting as many houses as possible on 1 acre, especially not what it's zoned for now. As a group, we've met and voted. Not one person felt that losing the RM zoning was in their best interest. We're not anti-PUD, we're just anti this PUD.
Thank you.
I'd like to submit this, please.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I should disclose that Ms. Stromberg is on my board of directors. I didn't say, I work for her.
There's a difference.
Willard Wentma?
Okay, turn the clock on. Thank you all for serving in this terrible job. I've been coming before this commission. The first plat ever signed is mine. Most of y'all know me, I'm a retired surveyor. I'm here about a safety issue, and I want to talk about Dead Man's Curve. Now, you don't see that on your concept. Come right with me and I'll show you where I pulled a drowned girl out of New River. Wayne Sheets helped me bring her up the bank. Leroy Meir hooked my truck on the car. Now, it was 4 black children drowned, so you didn't see any lawsuit over it. Doesn't speak well for us. This is a safety issue. The concept plat that you have in front of you is incorrect. I'm sure Ricky might have told you, and I'm available to the staff or any of you individually or collectively, but you've already changed the right-of-way on West Main Street when you sold to the school. Yet the map that you gave me, and I'm embarrassed that you have a public hearing, but the stuff you gave us is not what we're hearing. You got a tough job. I'm really embarrassed for you. But if you look at the map you approved for the school, Dave Fazika did it, and he came over 30 feet from the center line of the existing West Main Street. If you look at the concept map, it comes over 60 foot from the mean low water mark of New River. That's a fact, not my opinion, hardcore fact. How did you change the right-of-way? And I'll meet with any of y'all and show you that, and you'll agree when I show it to you. Second thing I want to tell you about, West Main Street was designed by a horse pulling a cart, okay? Well, we got cars now. But this plat that you have to consider tonight is designed by New River. My good friend here, he's a civil engineer. He knows how to do this correctly. If we put houses, it's going to cost us a fortune to fix it. School buses using this road now. I don't want to pull any more drowned children out of New River. The next one gets pulled out, you pull him out. I'm not pulling him out. Fix that road now before they put houses and we can't afford to fix it. This is what you're there, to protect the public and the safety welfare. I'm available, either of y'all individually, collectively, same way with Ricky, you two, to show you that concept map is not correct. Design a real curve on that road like it ought to be, or at least go to the right-of-way that currently exists, not what you have in front of you tonight. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Oob.
Good evening. I would just like to say I'm here in opposition to this PUD development. I moved here 7 years ago from Jefferson Parish with the anticipation of living in a new community that wasn't densely populated, noisy, safety issues, flooding issues. I moved from all of that to move here. I'm very disappointed now that this is being proposed, and really consider, wondering if my decision to move here was worth it. We will lose the environment that I've grown to love in just 7 short years. I love all these people that I've met here. I've enjoyed it to this point, but I can guarantee if y'all approve this PUD, my whole opinion of Ascension Parish will change completely. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Earl Oob.
My name is Earl Oob. I live at 11380 West Main Street. My wife and I moved over there 7 years ago. I too am against the PUD that's being proposed in front of y'all. West Main Street is a substandard street and can't handle the increased traffic caused by the additional 140-plus homes in the area. Drivers in this new neighborhood will utilize West Main Street, and the increased traffic will further deteriorate this road. West Main Street appears to be considered by many in Ascension Parish as a shortcut from Cornerview to Gonzales. This includes the Ascension Parish school buses that use West Main Street every day. The speed limit on West Main Street is posted at 25. Every school bus I have seen that uses West Main Street has exceeded this speed limit. My only hope is that we do not have one of these school buses full of children end up in the New River Bayou. How will the parish council justify to the media that it knew of this substandard road? Several people from Bonne Terre and Greenside Estates have reported speeding school buses, and the only response from the parish is there is no money to upgrade West Main Street. I have 3 pictures going into flooding. This is looking at the bridge going from West Main Street into Bonne Terre. The bridge is flooded. This is another taken from the street, West Main, into Bonne Terre. And this is from in front of my house, looking towards Cornerview. These pictures I took myself showing the existing flooding on West Main Street. The bayou simply cannot handle the extra water that will come from the new subdivision. Also, when the road floods, more subsurface damage will occur to West Main Street. I do not mean to sound unsympathetic, however. A new neighborhood with low-priced housing can only detract from the value of the homes in Greenside Estates and Bonne Terre. The owners of this land bought this land 7 years ago and told the residents that high-end homes would be built on large 1-acre lots. This intent has given way to recouping as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, to minimize the loss to the current landowners. Therefore, I don't believe that they have our best interest at heart and will do whatever they need to maximize their profits. One quick comment. This is from Tess. This is her last comment. We have been given the threat by the developers that if this PUD is not passed, they will throw up an RM acceptable subdivision, abiding by only the minimum standards. Isn't that nice? As a whole, we feel a subdivision with 28 less houses is to our betterment. That being said, we will also be watching to make sure that these developers meet the current RM standards and that the flooding and safety issues are addressed every step of the way. We are invested in our community, and we, as residents of Ascension Parish, will do what we can to protect it. We're here to humbly
Excuse me,
ask
sir.
your help to do so.
Thank
I
you.
understand. Thank you.
Quint Mall?
Before my time starts, I'd like the chairman's permission to submit these to the planning commission members so they can view those.
Sure.
They can ask me questions after my statement, and I can explain the horrific situation those photos will show. So I'll be happy to answer any questions after my statement. I'm Clint Quintmall. I grew up less than 700 feet from this proposed development, and my place of business is on the same property. So I guess you could say that I'm very familiar with this property being developed. After hearing the developer had reneged on his original plan about what type of development he promised the sellers and the adjacent property owners, I was immediately concerned about some of the safety issues being overlooked. I've commuted on West Main for most of my life, and I can tell you that driving off the asphalt while passing another vehicle is not uncommon, and it's dangerous. I can only imagine the safety concerns of two school buses passing each other. My neighbors and I have always considered this road to be a rural road. I can't tell you how many times I've witnessed vehicles submerged in the New River as a result of its dangerous curves, less than adequate road conditions, and substandard width on West Main. The proposed development having an interest on West Main is a huge safety risk. Under no circumstance should it be considered. Since the completion of the new school, we have witnessed several wrecks on Cornerview. I feel that more improvements must be made to ensure that existing residents are not impacted, but also to ensure the safety of the children commuting back and forth to this new school. These concerns must be addressed. Drainage is another important concern. We have two road closures due to flash flooding, one in 2012, one in 2013. My concern with one drainage outlet is that there will be more road closures and adjacent properties will be impacted in a negative way. On the west side of the proposed development, Greenside property owners will feel the impact of this development as lots on the west side of the proposed development direct their drainage water straight into their lots. The greatest impacts felt on the east side of the development. After speaking with Ward Webb, a resident on the east side of the new school, he says he's already feeling the impact of the school site, and his property is taking on more drainage water. Drainage waters coming from the northeast side of the development will push to the east and will impact property owners such as Gail Robert and Brad Rivette, who share a drainage outlet. This drainage outlet of a large flood-prone area to the east, overwhelming this drainage outlet, could have drainage impacts that extend well into Fife subdivision and within the city Gonzales Corp limits. There is another concern that has to be addressed. I just want to remind the Planning Commission that this development is in a floodplain corridor, not in a floodplain. A floodplain corridor. Bayou Goudin drains a large part of Dutchtown as well as its other branches, as well as New River that extends way beyond that. In my opinion, the major subdivision development must meet three criteria to be approved. First, it must satisfy all safety issues with health, safety, and welfare. Second, it must have zero drainage impact on adjoining properties. Third, it must be within the community in which it is being developed. Okay, that's fine. I will answer any questions to the horrific situation those photos dictate if the Planning Commission sees fit.
I think we'll let everybody go ahead and
Sure.
speak first, and then ask questions later, because there's so many.
Alvin Madare?
Alvin Madare is my son-in-law, but he was at your job, what you're doing right now, for a few years. And he's going through a lot of things, and he was concerned about what is being proposed here tonight. So he just asked me to tell you that he needs more clarification, more information before he can make any decision, and actually I do so.
Thank you, Mr. Obey.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Okay, I have one. The parish requires a traditional neighborhood development to design, and I'm one of my major concerns is flooding. I think because we're so close to where tailwater ends up for a majority of the parish, it seems like this thing is they're required to design to a 10-year storm. With this density going up, how conservative are we? Can we look into designing this neighborhood or seeing how conservative it is up against a 100-year storm? Because, I mean, these events happen. They have happened. I mean, we've had some big rain events. I mean, is that something that can happen with the density going up and with the fact that it's a PUD? Tim?
Well, we can ask them to take a look at it. We don't have anything in the code that requires them to do it.
That's
But,
scary.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of scary with something like this, that it's not required, I guess, for 100 year. I mean, I guess that, to me, that would almost reveal that it's unengineerable, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word. I'm not a licensed engineer, but I mean, I do practice design, you know, a good bit with this stuff. Another question that I have is, the original PUD was 172 lots, 60 acres. That was roughly 3 units per acre. Where did this 3.7 number come from? I mean, we sold off 15 acres. We went to, that went to the school. So where did 3.7 come from? Why did that have to change, or why did it?
When an applicant submits anything to the parish, if they're meeting zoning, they're going to meet the 321. If they're doing a PUD, that PUD could be 100 units per acre.
That's what I was about to ask.
They're applying to do this, and this is their design. We don't dictate density in a PUD. We don't say you have to have a mix of uses.
That's what I thought.
It gives you flexibility.
So he could have said he wanted 8 units per acre, stacked them on top of each other if he wants. And
Sure.
once it gets zoned for a PUD, that can happen. That
Right.
cannot happen if it stays RM.
Correct.
We're stuck to minimum lot sizes and the density of 3 units per acre.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Ricky, recently, this commission and the council passed new subdivision regulations that change, and I'm not sure if everyone here understands the impacts of those changes, but we spent quite some time doing that. And can you explain briefly what a new subdivision in this location would look like based on RM zoning and based on our new subdivision regulations? Because there is a requirement now for different lot sizes in a major subdivision.
Sure. So if this property was developed as a standard subdivision, and I know Commissioner Ori has used the term T&D as a traditional neighborhood development, but that's not what it would be. It would be a subdivision.
Right.
It would be capped at 127 lots, which is 3 units per acre. They'd be a max of 63 50-foot lots, a max of 88 60-foot lots, and a max of 101 70-foot lots. They'd be required to have 2.538 acres of park. Sidewalks would be required. 1 tree per lot would be required, and 12 Class A trees per acre and 24 ornamental trees per acre would be required in the parks. So what we'd expect to see is a subdivision, not entirely different in layout than this, but with fewer 50s and more 60s and 70s. We would expect the park probably to reduce a little bit, because you'd increase your lot size to eat up some of that land, maybe to get some more premiums in there. And once again, we do not dictate design in the subdivision, and so it'll be up to the developer's decision which lot sizes to put where, because the code basically recognizes that if you're adjacent to residential, that's a compatible land use, and the lot sizes don't have to match. You don't have to put an acre lot next to a acre lot just because that's what's outside. So he could put 50s on the outside and 70s on the inside. He could put 70s on the outside and 50s on the inside. He could mix them like the PUD showing. It really is entirely up to him. But the revisions to the subdivision code will require sidewalks, park space, and trees. Other than those things, if we turned it down and we said it has to stay RM, then anything else that happens, whether it's an additional entrance onto West Main, we can't require that they not do that, correct? Can we require anything above what is in RM? No.
So we can't require a turning lane, we can't require that they don't
I'm
draw
not going to
traffic
say
on the
you
West
can't
Main.
require a turning lane, because I do believe that that's going to come down to whether or not this commission believes that the health, safety, and welfare of the community is better suited by putting a turn lane in.
Okay,
I'm
so
not
we're
going to say
allowed
that.
to do that.
I'm not going to say you can't request that second entrance, because the code says you should have a second entrance. It doesn't say shall. That is, once again, up to this commission. But you really can't tell them they have to build, picnic shelters. You can't tell them they have to do all this. That's up to the developer whether or not he wants to do that. And once again, your recommendation tonight will go to the council. A recommendation to deny, the applicant has the decision whether or not he wants to take that application to deny to the council, or if he wants to, rework the solution and come back to the commission. If you make a recommendation to approve, then that, once again, goes to the council, and they ultimately have the final say.
Yeah, I wanted you to clarify to everyone, if it wasn't well understood, that even under the new subdivision regulations, there will be different lot sizes. They're not going to be all the same lots. There'll be a limited number of lots per acre, but there will be different lot sizes as required by the new regulations.
Yes, sir.
Right. Regarding, well, a lot of people spoke against the PUD, but not necessarily against RM zoning. And a lot of people probably would rather see nothing there. And the concerns about flooding and traffic are legitimate, of course. The property currently drains. The property, whether it's developed as RM or a PUD, will continue to drain into New River. It does now. The requirement of the developer is to not worsen the drainage situation that exists now. Now, I'm an engineer and I have some faith in that, but I appreciate that people who don't really understand the math or the design involved in that would have some concerns, and I appreciate that. I mean, I understand that. It just seems reasonable that if you're going to put a lot more houses in an area, you're going to have, greater flood risk. Yeah, and I don't always believe the numbers on paper either, even though, I sometimes do that sort of thing. But in theory, at least, the developer needs to develop that property, however it's developed, so as not to worsen the drainage situation that currently exists. So they do that with retention ponds. They do that by minimizing the amount of flow that can go into New River Bayou. And as Josh mentioned earlier, much of the flooding problems that we see in Ascension Parish, and certainly in this area, is due to tailwater flooding. It's just backwater flooding, which is going to happen whether anything's built there or not. It's going to continue to happen unless we levee off the entire parish and put big pump stations in and pump everything over the levee. I don't see that happening, but I think that I appreciate the concern that people have about increasing the potential for flooding. I'm probably satisfied that a design can be done that won't worsen the flooding in the area. Now, I would be concerned if I bought a house in the subdivision that that'd be back.
Yes.
Tailwater's back. It's so close to the, as Josh said, so close to the tailwater source that it would water could back into this and potentially flood houses within the subdivision. I guess they could put a flap gate or something in there to prevent that sort of thing. But the point is, if it rains enough in that subdivision, the water can't get out. If the water in the subdivision, unless the water in the subdivision is higher than the water level in New River Bayou, it will not flow out. It's going to continue to build up. It will never be lower than the water in New River Bayou, regardless of, unless you actually put a gate there and put a pump station, and that's not the plan. Right,
That's what I'm wondering if it's at the staff's discretion to even ask for what the 100-year storm would do.
Yeah, I don't know. As Ricky
Would that
pointed
help?
out earlier, and the reason I wanted to mention the new subdivision regulations is we do have more control over what happens in a PUD. That's the only advantage, really. But there seems to be quite an outcry against a PUD because of the increased density. So, we need to consider that.
Yeah.
Traffic, I yeah, I mean, that's going to be an issue. The fact, we're having to deal with increased development in the parish. Someone mentioned something about sewerage, and the parish has hired an engineering firm to manage, to do program management on sewer system, including a treatment plant and collection system. And eventually, all of East Bank of Ascension Parish will be under sewerage, and all of the package plants will, maybe not in my lifetime, will go away. But all of these subdivisions will all eventually connect to a parish sewer system. I don't know where this falls in the plan of P16, but
I'm not sure
I don't
either.
know if it's in that area or not. But anyway, in the meantime, we have to live with package plants for subdivisions.
And
that's all
I would, while the public hearing's still go on, let Derek address some of the things that have been said, and maybe let your traffic engineer speak a second.
Where to begin? Let me start with drainage slightly. New River has 24 square miles of area draining to this area, 621,000 plus acres. We're 44 acres. I know this area, we did look at the 100-year. We look in our report, we did look at the 100-year. It is not a requirement that we detain the 100-year, and that's what I was kind of looking at. But we did look at the 100-year. We did present it to the parish for their review. So.
Can you detain it?
No, well, I don't know that answer because we
Okay.
didn't run it to detain it. We ran it to ensure that we wouldn't worsen the drainage in the area. We can look at that. I cannot sit here because that is above and beyond the ordinance as required in this parish, but we can look into that, being that there's extenuating circumstance, we can work with engineering. I cannot say we're going to sit here and detain a 100-year storm. But we can look into it and see what we can do.
I mean, just for the assurance of the people that would buy houses in the neighborhood, for you to know yourself whether or not it would flood these
But
houses in the future.
that's why we do check the 100-year. We want to
Okay.
check what the water surface will be in the pond.
Right.
We want to make sure, because as the ordinance states, it's either 1 foot above the base flood elevation or 1 foot above the 100-year water surface in the pond. And that's why we have to check that to ensure that we're not going
That's
to be,
correct. Yeah.
that we don't have flooding inside the neighborhood. And so we do have to have those checks. This is a concept plan. This is a drainage study. We do have to have drainage calculations. We do have to have construction plans, mitigation plans. Your engineering department has to review every step of the way. We have to make it through the process. This is step one. Now, I say this a lot.
Yeah,
This
I
is
agree.
step one of a process. This is a concept plan for zoning. We know what the elevations are out there. We're not building the subdivision to an elevation 9. We're going to be above the 100-year storm. As far as the sewer, I wasn't there for that deal, but from my understanding, the school and the property owner made a deal where the subdivision can utilize a single sewer system. This sewer system that's existing at the school today is ran by a private operator, or the school system, I'm not sure, but most of these systems are ran by a private operator. This private operator will take over the lines, or the parish will, depending. They are, the parish is getting into the sewer business. They want this business. So it depends on, that is something that will be worked out during the construction plan phase. But there is an operator of that sewer system. We have to get DEQ, DHH permitting, all the step of the way. So there are federal and local regulations. You've heard from many people up here. The flooding is existing. There's Bonterre, there's Greenside. Yes, there's a flooding issue. When you're dealing with 24 square miles of drainage area, it's some flooding issues. No one's up here saying it's not. All we can say is we're meeting the ordinance. We have been reviewed by your engineering department. We're meeting the ordinance as it's written today. We're meeting the laws. I want to make sure that y'all understand that when we talk about the 127 lots and what can be developed, we're not threatening anyone. We're trying to ensure people, look, we're trying to do something good. We're trying to do something above and beyond. We're trying to make a beautiful development with lots of amenities, make sure that these homes hold their value. We're trying to do something above and beyond. Economics, that costs money. That's where you get lots. We're trying to do more than even the subdivision ordinance requires that's today, which is more than what it was a year ago at this time. So we're trying to even go above and beyond that. So I want you to understand that the amenities themselves, that's the cost of the PUD. The developer has a vision in his head, and I'll let Mr. Larry speak if y'all allow him, and he can kind of pass on that. But as far as the traffic, let me get Nick Folito up here with Neil Schaefer and kind of talk about the traffic. Y'all heard about that. A lot of the traffic concerns was about West Main Street. Mm-hmm. If you look at what we submitted as a substitution, you see that we removed that. That's up to y'all if y'all want to consider that. Our goal is not to tie into West Main Street. There seems to be a lot of issues there. But I'll let y'all talk to Nick about the connection to Cornerview.
Thank you.
Good evening. As Derek said, a lot of comments about the West Main Street connection. When we previously did the study, we did not assume that connection was there. And when we saw a revised plat that showed that, we have two studies that show it with and without that. Even the study with the connection to West Main, we did not generate or recommend a lot of traffic going to that location because if you look at existing volumes, people have said it's highly traveled, but the counts we did showed that there was about 400 to 500 vehicles per day using that roadway. So a majority of the traffic for the subdivision would probably most likely use Cornerview to ingress and egress. So those were our assumptions on that. As far as the safety for Cornerview and the need for the turn lane, we do these studies and there's methodologies and procedures that we have to follow to look at the need and warrants for left turn lanes based on volume, what's out there. And when we did this study, we actually counted, the existing entrance to where that goes into the school and Cornerview, which will be potentially used for the connection to the subdivision. So we had a baseline of existing traffic out there. And based on those volume levels, the amount of through traffic on Cornerview, the number of left turns currently entering into the school, and then with the addition of the subdivision traffic, those numbers from a volume standpoint currently do not warrant the left turn lane. Now, Ricky had mentioned earlier about those volume levels. Now that's for those volumes for the school as it is today. If that school decides to increase enrollment, that potential for that need of that left turn lane may be warranted at some point. But for us, we're evaluating the impact of this project, Legacy Oaks, on that location, and that's what we did based on the volumes that are out there today. From a safety standpoint, sure. I mean, a left turn lane, you put those in anywhere, they're going to increase your safety. I heard several folks tonight mention several crashes since the school is open. We did do a crash database search for the last 3 years of Cornerview in this area, and it only resulted in one crash in this general vicinity. That does not mean we missed a couple crashes. Sometimes it takes a while for those crashes to get into that database. There's some lag time. So, from a safety standpoint, and Jason Taylor knows this well when he was at T-Tech with DOTD, when you look at a location, you look for abnormal locations that have an abnormal crash rate, which is usually a location that is higher than the average statewide rate for that type of facility, rural or urban intersection, for instance. So based on those factors, we just, from our looking at the development and its impact, we just do not feel that turn lane is warranted at this time. Not to say that it may not be warranted in the future as that school enrollment increases.
Well, why would you consider a build-out of the subdivision when you look at the left turn lane and not consider a build-out of the school?
Well, typically, that subdivision, we assume that that's going to be built in the near term. Whereas the school, when the school enrollment had an initial enrollment of 420 students, and then over time, maybe a maximum enrollment of 700 students.
So why wouldn't you consider that?
Because we were looking at the impact of this potential development at this time.
It's likely the school's going to grow as quickly as the development fills up.
And that's possible.
Very true. The capacity of the school is what's not being considered? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
We looked at the current level of the school, what's utilizing the school today.
And that's something I've written down a few times. I kind of feel like the capacity of the school, and I'm not sure what your principles are when you're doing these studies, because I know your firm does a good job of doing traffic studies, but yeah, that was my concern as well, the capacity. So I would vote for a turn lane, no matter which
Yeah.
one goes in, no matter what. I mean, that's a given on my part at least.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I do.
The last gentleman showed us some pictures. What's the width of that street?
Main Street.
I can give you the distances I have. I
What's the
measured
width?
them today at 3 o'clock. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does anyone know the width of the street?
I know it's narrow.
It is narrow.
17 feet. On the north, in what we call Dead Man's Curve. Let me get my sheet, because I'll go ahead and submit this in the minutes as well. The asphalt in front of Greenside is 17.7, that's intense, feet, and that's directly in front of Greenside. The asphalt with 100 feet east of Greenside is 17 feet even. The distance at 400 feet east of Greenside is 17 feet even. At that particular distance, I measured from the double line, the north line to the edge of asphalt was 7.6 feet. On the south line, the south yellow line of the double line, measured to the side of the edge of asphalt, it was 8. In photo number 7, the oak tree is 6 feet from the edge of the asphalt. On photo number 14, the school bus, I measured the school bus in that photo. From edge of mirror on both sides of the school bus measures 9.3. It is physically impossible for 2 buses to pass without both getting off of the edge of asphalt. If you look at those photos and the degree of drop, if a bus goes off at certain points of there, what happens is it flips on the top. It slides into New River. It is covered muck past the windows and past the exit points, and you have a fallout of a certain number of dead kids and school bus drivers. That is the possibility that could happen if we allow an entrance on West Main. There are the photos. They speak 1,000 words. And I'm happy to address any other numbered photo, because I numbered them and I have my legend here.
And I have them here. if you want.
The reason I asked that question, I'm looking at considerations for a subdivision, street requirement 17-4030. A major minor subdivision cannot take place on any street with pavement less than 18 feet.
I made these measurements today. I'll be happy to measure them with you,
And
meet you out
we're
there.
getting very close to that, aren't we?
It's below 18. It's below.
So does that tell us that we take the consideration for an entrance at West Main out completely? Do
Well,
we
the
have
other
that
concept on
authority?
here is, suggesting there be at least, on different streets, subdivision should have more than one exit street.
I mean, I personally live in a 133 lot neighborhood with one entrance and exit. I personally don't see that as a problem. I also don't have a school in front of my subdivision, but,
Well, again, the date on this is 9/29/2009.
Today.
That's the most recent one that I saw in preparing for this meeting, so obviously I do have concerns as this proposal is now.
Is there more discussion here?
can we,
John?
yeah, I mean, how about the gorilla in the room?
All right.
Which proposal, I'm sorry, which proposal are we talking about? I'm not sure. I mean, I think that is very unclear as to which
Well,
I've got three
the
different ones in
developers
front of
come
me.
in tonight, we had a packet with
Yes.
certain information on it.
Right.
The developers come in with some amendments to that, and we've asked him to show us, well, what are you changing? Now, I guess we have the prerogative, I believe we have the prerogative, we can ask Lindsay, if we have the prerogative to accept the amendments, accept the changes for our consideration. That doesn't mean we approve the PUD or anything. It just means, do we want to vote
I would like
as a
that.
group on the change, or do we want to vote on this original? Now, in the change, he took out the access to West Main, among some other things, I guess. So there's only one, there would be only one entrance into the subdivision on Corner View at the school, right? Was there anything else of significance?
The lot size along there.
No, I mean, I'm asking the developer.
Units per acre.
Huh?
Units per acre.
What are you
Well,
talking about?
I remember those. I mean, was there something else other than those two issues primarily?
Yeah.
Just want to be really clear on that.
Say that again, Mr. Gasper.
Was there anything besides taking out, in your amended submittal or your amendment, you took out the entrance to West Main, or the access to West Main? What else major was done in that?
The changes included taking out the entrance on West Main Street.
Right.
And changing the 60s and some of the 50s to all 70s along West Main Street and along Greenside on that side to 70-foot lots. We had a pedestrian bridge in the original. We took that out and added in lieu of pedestrian bridge, barbecue pits, benches, things like that. So we changed some of the amenities. That's the change. That was it.
Okay.
So Gasper, what I hear you saying, you actually sent an email out kind of stating to that exact fact. Are the changes in the plan significant enough to justify another public hearing based on another criteria?
Well,
I think we should maybe.
Well, considering that this is a concept plan,
Yeah.
you know, I think, as I said, we can ask Lindsay's opinion from a legal perspective. I think we have the prerogative probably of considering this package with the changes that they've shown us as in concept, in a concept plan. This isn't a final plat. I mean, we're not approving.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's a concept.
Or we're not considering, rather, a final plat. It's a concept plan.
Derek, what is the current elevation of this property? You looking around 2 foot, I heard someone say?
The elevation of this property is around elevation anywhere from 12.
Roughly. Yeah,
What's that?
just roughly, yeah.
12.
Around 12 foot?
Well, 9 to 12.
And then
What's
what are
your
you looking at,
basis?
what are you thinking? I know you're very preliminary. You haven't probably done much surveying. but what do
11
you-
to 12 is finished floor to houses.
Okay. That's what base flood is. You need to be a foot above base flood.
Well, the base flood elevation out here is elevation 10, looking at the FEMA maps. But if
Okay.
you look at the flood insurance studies, it's actually a little bit higher than 10. So we need to look at that. And so the finished floor of the houses will be between 11 and 12.
So it doesn't
1
sound
foot
like-
above.
It doesn't sound like that much fill.
No, sir.
Foot, 2 foot?
That's correct. We're under the 3 foot, the 36 inch.
Yeah, you're right about that. You can't, can't allow that.
Well, let me ask a question. It may not matter whether we consider the original proposal or the amended proposal if everybody in here is still opposed to the concept of the PUD in the first place. I know some concerns were the entrance onto West Main, which is going to increase, if there was any traffic at all coming through there, it's going to increase traffic on Corner View. And I agree with you, Josh, we would certainly require a left turn lane there under any
Absolutely.
circumstance, right?
I would.
Even
I know.
for
I'm gonna
an
fight.
RM zone, even for the
Absolutely.
current zoning.
Just
I would.
because of the fact that there's a potential of, the capacity's there. I mean, it's just.
Right, exactly.
Just based on that.
Right.
And West Main, I travel that road quite often. I have some, near and dear friends that live on down that road, and it's a very substandard road, and we can't find the money to maintain the roads, and we're about to stop accepting new roads. I don't think we'll be fixing this road parish-wise anytime soon.
Not unless we get a tax passed, right?
That doesn't seem to happen.
One question for Ricky that I'm not completely clear about. Ricky, if we leave this as RM zoning and deny this PUD, the any subdivision design, can another subdivision design under RM have an access onto West Main? I mean, can that happen whether we like it or not?
Just to be clear, you're making a recommendation
I
to
understand.
deny.
That's right.
So if they do come back with a regular subdivision, I would imagine that we're going to get a similar turnout with a similar response of, we don't want a connection to West Main, and it's going to come down to whether or not you guys want to tell them they don't have a connection, or you want to support the connection. It really is going to come down to this commission saying that.
Okay.
Based on our principles, the health, safety, and well-being, I would feel like we would all request that there not be an entrance and exit on West Main.
Agreed. Is there any further discussion here? Okay, I'd like to close the public hearing now. Do we have any further discussion here, or would anybody like to make a motion of any kind? Mr. Burgess?
I move we recommend denial.
I second.
I was heading in that direction.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, hallelujah.
Yeah, I'll move.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.